The second big bias that gets many to scoff at astrology is triggered by the idea that mental descriptions can be predicted by looking at things we would normally call unrelated, like time or planetary angles. Science understands everything is technically connected, of course, but isn't assigning unrelated meaning superstitious. It definitely can be. But there's really no such thing as unrelated if everything is technically, literally connected, is there? It isn't superstition if there's a measurable, scientifically verifiable relationship. Just because we can invent connections doesn't mean there aren't true connections that honestly would seem just as ridiculous to us. First of all, it helps to see that this kind of prediction is not actually as strange and radical sounding as it seems. The truth is, every medical tradition in the world, except for ours, of course, recognizes and uses exactly this kind of body reading to successfully diagnose and cure disease, like traditional Chinese medicine, for example. There are a wide variety of natural health methods and diagnosis styles, and they all honestly work quite well. Gardeners can tell you everything that happened to a tree year by year just by looking at its rings. Farmers learn to understand the problems in their animals just like you learn to recognize and understand your own body symptoms. Regular Western doctors are wisely humbled by the body. I mean, it's an incredible machine that honestly technology, I mean, we can build we can replicate bodies at this point, but we're never going to be able to technologically replicate a biological body. That is a fallacy. Doctors know better than to say that they can predict a real live living body because they're relying on their own education instead of learning to read and understand the wisdom of nature. They also try to be extra careful because their methods are so unnatural. They're taking over rather than working with the body. They don't know what else to do with horrible pain. It's so dangerous that our doctors aren't even allowed to diagnose. They can only follow approved procedures. It's not a body skill you can learn to develop like in other countries. So it's a little understandable to be automatically suspicious of anyone acting like something so opposite is normal. But it is literally the whole rest of the world that we're calling different. If you stop to think about it, it's definitely unnatural doctor habits we need to worry about, not the supposedly weird natural methods that are rescuing us from them. The historical truth is, what we know as medicine is actually the opposite of it. In the late 1800s, the fathers of industry literally waged war on the healers. By the 1900s, the Rockefellers had closed all the healing hospitals, which were not only far more successful, they provided things like clean air and sunshine, not to mention a free place to stay. They replaced everything with pharmaceuticals made out of petroleum, literally the same stuff that's powering your car, and told everyone, of course, that they couldn't get health care anymore without paying a fortune for expert service that only they could provide, of course. Healing was literally made illegal, and it was severely punished. Parents were not even allowed to raise children unless they followed the new laws. This is being politely understated for public broadcast, you understand, right? To help give you some perspective, the midwives who helped me in 2002 were still so scared of these laws that they refused to allow me to actually practice any natural birthing method or answer questions of any kind. The good news is, it only took 20 years for natural birthing methods to start getting offered even in hospitals across the nation, just like it was normal and standard. People are acting swiftly because we have to. It only took 100 years for industrial food and medicine to make everyone sick. The age of lawsuits has now begun. Corporate America is starting to get held responsible for profiting off of the willful death and destruction of a nation. While the crashing economy can seem scary, this is a good one to let go of. It's not just that we can do better. We can't actually do better until we stop dragging it along with us. If you're a reader, that book there has my vote for one of the best books ever written. It's called Sane Asylums by Jerry Cantor. In nature, there is no such thing as side effects. You don't leave with a prescription for life that also causes other problems. You get healed. So, how does all of this apply to astrology? Sounds like we're wandering, doesn't it? This isn't just nail or pulse diagnosis here. We're talking about predicting invisible thoughts with things like planetary locations, right? To answer that, we still have to unmask the other miseducation getting used here. We've all been taught that you are your body. The non-physical parts of you are inside of it, right? This is absolute nonsense. It's 100% false according to our own science. Energy obviously creates matter, and this process can be easily measured. You are actually an energy field that is strong enough to be distinctly measurable a good 6 feet from your body. There's a lot of people who can actually see it. And energy doesn't actually follow the laws of physics. Even Einstein called this stuff spooky action at a distance. I love this definition. DNA is actually a quantum computer. It's taking all that crazy invisible stuff and turning it into physical matter. Don't worry though, this does not mean you need to be a science geek to verify astrology for yourself. There is nothing that you can't verify for yourself. People are pattern hunters. We learn to recognize and use patterns to survive. Most people call them habits. When you take the time to identify the basic patterns of all our ideas, you just line that up next to natural data of all different kinds. What you notice is not where they match, because that's basically everywhere. What you notice is how they match. You'll learn to read signs just like we read body symptoms. If you ride a bike, for example, your body is going to stay in the same basic position as long as you do. If we could see the bike, but not you, we could still tell where your body would be as long as it was in motion, right? It's not hard to take what you know and make some predictions. They're not promises. You can always be wrong. Maybe somebody, zapped him out to another dimension. But generally speaking, that's where your body goes, right? There is nothing hard or tricky here. It's just different from all we were taught. New doors show us things that we haven't seen before. So hopefully, astrology is starting to feel a lot less intimidating already. Again, you do not need to believe anything to learn about something new. You just have to suspend disbelief. Although we're not quite out of the woods just yet, there is still one more big bias to cover before we can actually get started. And that one is the deepest of all. Namaste, my angel. I honor the whole you.